Rise, the Bradford Legal Heritage Plays. Originally written by Jill Arnold, adapted for radio by Lydia Pearce and Paisley Boyd. Sponsored by Broadway House Chambers. This episode features Exit Stage Right, based on a case from around 1914, and In Conversation with All Rise.
All rise.
Good morning, your worships. Our next case is that of Percy Butterfield. Call Percy Butterfield, represented today by his lawyer, Mrs. Smith. Do you swear by Almighty God to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Give your name and address to the court.
Percy Butterfield, 5 Lemon Street, Bradford.
Mr. Butterfield, it is said that on October 25th, you stole several personal items and money to the value of £16 and 5 shillings from patrons of the Alhambra Theatre. How do you plead?
Well, I'm not really guilty, sir. You see, I had a good reason.
Good reason? What nonsense.
Yes, your worships. As you will know, Bradford's beautiful Alhambra Theatre has recently been opened, and sadly has already attracted the wrong clientele. The Crown will say that on the 25th of October, an unsuspecting audience were enjoying the music and performance that they had paid good money to see. Less than an hour into that performance, the defendant, dressed from head to toe in black, including a balaclava, had snuck past the ticket office and in a ninja-like manner made his way into the auditorium.
Ninja?
Yes, a kind of covert Japanese agent and usually deadly at martial arts.
This defendant, Mr. Butterfield?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you sure this isn't a case of mistaken identity?
Oh, quite sure, ma'am. In fact, he was almost apprehended by a member of the box office staff on his way to the auditorium. But in a moment of split-second thinking, he froze, then proceeded to mime into a trapped box. His performance was so convincing that the member of staff mistook him as one of the arts and left him alone. It's a shame for all involved that he didn't pursue this career as a career himself instead.
Very well, please continue.
Yes, ma'am. On entering the auditorium and reaching the side dress circle, Butterfield also took advantage of the darkness and noise of the music to creep into the boxes from behind.
Outrageous.
Your worships, the prosecutor is portraying this to be far more sinister than it actually was.
Not now, Mrs. Smith, for the defence. You'll have your opportunity to address the court. Do carry on, Mr. Jones.
I'm grateful, ma'am. The defendant managed to empty the contents of the coat pockets that were hanging up. He stole the ladies' handbags, and even had the audacity to reach into the pocket of a gentleman he sang along with, a particularly rowdy rendition of Any Old Iron, being performed by a young Billy Pearce.
Way!
Now, what happened then?
Well, ma'am, as Butterfield made his way to the second box, he was unaware that one of the ladies had temporarily excused herself in order to use the conveniences. The defendant thought it appropriate to sneak back into the box from behind and began to evaluate the situation and decide which valuables could be removed without any further notice.
And what about the lady who went to the...
Yes, ma'am, yes. Mrs. Hill.
Sir, may I just explain? It has all been a huge misunderstanding.
Not now, Mrs. Smith. I want to hear what happened next.
Yes, ma'am. On Mrs. Hill's return from the facilities...
Yes, get on with it.
Well, ma'am, Mrs. Hill returned to the box, totally unaware of the intruder that had lurked in the darkness. She made her way back via the same route as she had left. Unfortunately, this was during a quiet segment of Harry and Firth's Dainty Maids. The defendant had hunched over the entrance to the box, waiting for the next loud performance to continue his spree.
Oh dear. And did she fall over him?
Indeed, ma'am. Flipped over like a pancake.
Can I explain, sir?
Look, all in good time, Mrs. Smith. Can we hear from Mrs. Hill?
Yes, ma'am, of course. And her daughter as well, Miss Susan Hill, who is also a witness.
Call Irene and Susan Hill. Do you both swear by Almighty God to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Please give your name and address to the court.
Irene Hill, 3 Mornington Villas.
Susan Hill, 3 Mornington Villas as well.
Yes, Mrs. Hill. Please tell the court in your own words what happened on the night in question.
Well, your worships, we had come into town early to partake of a pie and peas supper and a few halves of ale, in a stemmed ladies' glass, of course. From the Rose and Crown, we'd moved on to the theatre. We had been at the theatre for about an hour, thoroughly enjoying the performance, but when the Pankhursts came on, banging on about voting, I took the opportunity to go and use the facilities.
Yes, Mrs. Hill, we understand. Many an entertaining evening has been ruined by women's rights.
Excuse me.
Go on, Mrs. Hill.
Well, Mum, I wasn't familiar with the new building, so I may have been some time. Then I returned to the box and tried to make my way back to my seat, but I was stopped in my tracks.
Yes, Mrs. Hill, and what happened then?
The only thing I remember was flying through the air and landing on the floor between the seats in a very unladylike and compromising position. It made such a commotion the percussionist honked the bicycle horn as I landed.
Oh, dearie me, how awkward.
Yes, Mrs. Hill. What do you actually remember about the incident?
Much the same, sir. Mother went to the ladies. The next thing I remember was a loud scream and Mother's feet appearing at the side of my head.
Yes, please carry on, Miss Hill.
Well, sir, we were all in shock when suddenly, from under Mother's skirt, appeared a strange-shaped person completely in black, who proceeded to launch himself from the balcony.
Oh, as you can imagine, Ma'am, our defendant has been rumbled and so panicked, jumping from the edge of the box into the orchestra pit below. And by this time, the whole audience were alerted to this bizarre incident as there were screams and gasps throughout.
And where did you say he landed?
In the orchestral pit, Ma'am. On Mr. Davis, in fact, the conductor.
On the conductor?
Yes, Ma'am. And shall we invite him shortly? But first, Mrs. Hill, is there anything else that you can remember?
Yes, sir, I was eventually helped to my feet by 2 kind gentlemen. I was fortunate enough to witness the chaotic brawl in the orchestra pit and watch the defendant leap onto the stage and disappear through the side curtain.
And Mrs. Hill, how did you feel as a result of that?
Well, sir, the whole situation was appalling. I've never been so embarrassed or humiliated in all my life. He's a beastly scoundrel and he needs locking up.
And you, Miss Hill?
Well, it was all very unfortunate, sir, although he was by far the best entertainment in the second half. I'm just pleased that my mother's only injury was a bruise on her bottom.
Susan!
Sorry, her only injury was a bruise to her ego. Blooming massive it was, purple too.
Susan!
Yes, thank you, ladies. Perhaps, Your Worship, so we would like to call Mr. Herbert Davis, our third witness.
Call Herbert Davis. Do you swear by Almighty God to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Indeed I do, sir.
Please give your name and address to the court.
Herbert Davis, 3 Byron Grove, Thornton.
Is that correct, sir? That you are the conductor of the orchestra at the Alhambra Theatre?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, sir. Can you please tell the court what happened on the night in question?
Indeed, sir, I can. We were about 50 minutes into the performance when I became aware of a noisy distraction behind me, which takes some doing. Usually the noisy distractions come from the percussion section.
And what did you do as a result of that, Mr. Davis?
I remained professional and continued to conduct my orchestra until I heard several screams and a gasp from the audience. It was at this point that I felt a thump on my shoulder and I was dragged to the floor.
And do you say that was done by the defendant?
Yes, and he was dressed in black from head to foot. But after he was apprehended, I was able to see his face.
Yes, Mr. Davis. Is it right you managed to get the upper hand with the defendant and detain him for quite some minutes before he escaped onto the stage? Please explain to the court, how did you do that?
Well, I struggled to restrain the brute and called out for help. Unsurprisingly, the first violinist, instead of helping, screeched and leapt onto his chair, waving his violin aloft. Fortunately, the brass section were more happy to pile in and jabbed my assailant with a well-timed high note on the trombone and followed up by a flugel to his French horn.
Mr. Davis, thank you so much for your time.
And what happened next?
The defendant, ma'am, broke free from Mr. Davis. He climbed out of the pit using a double bass and stepping stone and exited the stage right. It was only by good fortune, we say, your worships, that the defendant then mistakenly surrendered himself to an actor dressed as a police officer, who detained him until the real police arrived.
Ah, now, Mrs. Smith, I'm looking forward to hearing from you and your client.
Thank you, ma'am. I must agree that on hearing the facts of this case and the witnesses' accounts, it does look rather cut and dried. But I can assure you that there are very strong mitigating circumstances behind the actions of Mr. Butterfield. This man is, perhaps unsurprisingly, not a ninja or a sneak thief. Yes, he was desperate, and yes, he did go equipped, and yes, his dress was, well, perhaps conducive to a secret night mission, but all is not what it appears to be. Percy Butterfield is a very sad and sensitive man. Only a few months ago, his wife and twin boys left him and their marital home to take up with another fellow in London.
Well, whilst that's very sad, what does that have to do with his actions?
Well, sir, so traumatised and hurt by this, Mr. Butterfield could neither work nor eat. He subsequently lost his job and became very depressed. He desperately needed to get some money together to travel to London to see his two sons.
So he thought he'd steal from other hard-working people?
Well, not exactly, your worships. Mr. Butterfield, naively, thought that where there were crowds of people sitting together, there must be a certain amount of coinage dropped by accident on the floor. His plan was to enter the Alhambra Theatre surreptitiously and without disturbing the performance or the audience, crawl between the seats and aisles in the hope of finding enough dropped money to pay for his train fare to London in order to see his beloved sons.
Oh, how very enterprising of him.
Oh, yes, what balderdash.
Allow Mrs. Smith to finish. You've had your turn.
Your worships, ludicrous as this may sound, Mr. Butterfield was desperate and thought that if he found any money on the floor, it would not be considered, well, stealing, but more salvaging. And the black clothing he was wearing was only so he wouldn't be recognised if spotted. Mr. Butterfield, is it true that your wife has recently left you?
Yes, ma'am, she has.
And taken your two sons to London?
Yes, that's true.
Tell us what happened then.
Well, I just went to pieces, ma'am. It was such a shock. I couldn't eat, I couldn't work, I couldn't sleep. Eventually, I lost my job, so I haven't got any money at all.
So, Mr. Butterfield, tell the court in your own words, why did you choose the Alhambra Theatre in the hope of finding money?
Oh, well, ma'am, it's because I overheard somebody talking on the train. They said they'd been to the new Alhambra to a show and found a new £1 note on the floor under the seat.
Ooh, did you say a £1 note? In the Bradford Alhambra Theatre?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I thought if he can do it, why can't I? And that was when I decided to go. I decided to go there when there was a full audience.
Your worships, you can see now how this strange plan came about and why Mr. Butterfield thought he could possibly access enough funds to travel to London.
Your worships, the fact remains that the defendant was found not only with an amount of money on him, but personal items also tucked into his pockets, including 2 ladies' silk handkerchiefs. And in my respectful submission, your worships, Mr. Butterfield is not only guilty as charged, but dangerous to boot. He deserves a long prison sentence.
I am so very, very sorry. I meant no harm. And the Yankees, well, they belong to my dear wife.
Your worships, look at Mr. Butterfield. Such remorse, such sadness, such pain. Surely he has suffered enough. And Mrs. Hill, well, she only received a small bruise to her bottom. Well, sorry, ego.
Yes, we know that.
Your worships, no real harm done. And I believe that he has learnt his lesson. And of course, he is still without his wife and sons. Additionally, through his own actions, he can no longer attend a brass band concert without wincing at the trombones. I ask you, your worships, please, to judge the defendant with some degree of empathy, and perhaps just reprimand him for his sheer stupidity. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've heard enough. Stand up, Mr. Butterfield. Our new Alhambra Theatre is something for Bradford to be proud of. It has barely opened its doors, and we have the likes of you sneaking about the floor, putting people at risk. Although we may have some sympathy with your marital circumstances, your dubious activities in our theatre were nothing short of horrendous. However, the bench believes that you will benefit by being conditionally released under the observation of a skilled probation officer. You will be under his watch and guidance for the next 12 months. Take him away.
Welcome to In Conversation with the team behind All Rise. My name's Lydia Pearce and I am joined by Jill Arnold and Paisley Boyd. So Jill, can you tell everyone about yourself, please?
I'm Jill Arnold. I'm a magistrate and Deputy Chairman of the West Yorkshire Bench. I'm also a Deputy Lieutenant for West Yorkshire, and we as Deputy Lieutenants assist the Lord Lieutenant in his role as the Queen's representative.
Hi, yes, I'm Paisley Boyd and I'm a comedian and writer based in Leeds. I'm also the assistant comedy producer at Bradford Fringe Festival and one of the writers involved in the writing process of this project.
And I'm Lydia Pearce. I'm a barrister practicing out of Broadway House Chambers. I also do stand-up comedy, and I've also been helping out with the writing and the production behind the All Rise plays. I know that the plays originally came from live action plays that used to take place as part of the Heritage Weekend around September each year in Bradford. Jill, are you able to tell us a bit about what it was like when the plays were being performed, please?
The Heritage reenactments have been going for many, many years now. My first involvement was around 2004, I believe, or 2005, and that's when I took over the writing of the plays themselves. All the reenactments are based on true stories, true cases that were found basically they were found in the old archives to the Telegraph and Argus. Hundreds of reels in the drawers, and I used to spend possibly half a day there and go through all the old reels with a pen and paper and a magnifying glass. It was not an easy task, I can tell you, but you know, worthwhile in the end. So I just trolled through it until I found interesting cases. The reenactments were then performed on Heritage Day in the old City Hall court. But the great thing was that all the characters were played by either real magistrates, solicitors, court users, and friends and family. So it was a lovely occasion, and everybody enjoyed it. And of course, the public were able to come in and see it for free.
Jill, what was your favourite play that we tackled?
I have to say it's the one with Billy Pearson. It was just brilliant to have him on board, and he played a villain in the exit stage right, and I just thought that was great. So I felt very privileged to be in that one with Billy, because I actually played his defence solicitor, which was great, because in those days, I think it was just mainly men until about 19, what was it, Lydia? 19,
I think it's 1920, the first women started practising. Paisley, what was your favourite one that we worked on?
It will have to be maybe the first one we worked on, which was Deal or No Deal, which is the one about a man who sold his wife for a pig. and I think it's one of the earliest ones, wasn't it? Am I
It
correct?
was, yeah. That was one from 1361, I believe.
I love the story because, without giving much away, I just love how it plays out. And I enjoyed writing some puns and jokes with Lydia on this too. There was just bits that I was laughing quite a bit.
Had to keep a straight face, yeah.
With, yeah.
And
there was a lot to kind of work with, and it's kind of the base of the story there. And I just enjoyed it, and it's one of my favourites now.
My favourite one was Well of Deceit, which is about the chap who has been caught stealing apples from his neighbour.
That's right, yeah.
And I really liked with that one. I remember spending ages trying to figure out what subplot to put in it. And then, I don't know what it was that gave me the idea, but I thought, actually, this guy's going to be a bit of a ne'er-do-well who's knocking around with all the local women. That's why he's really sneaking around this orchard. Then getting to write these silly jokes in about this guy, and it's slowly being revealed the further you went through the play, the real reason he was knocking around in the orchard. I loved that.
I enjoyed that as well. I enjoyed writing. I researched a lot into apples for that one to find some apple jokes.
Oh, the Granny Smith joke, yeah, and the pink ladies. Yeah,
I was going in. It's like, these are all the different types of apples, and
I quite liked it. Generally, the defendants are the people who've got themselves in a pickle, and the story is the joke around them is generally the situation that they're in. What I quite liked was that we gave the bench some quite good jokes. They clearly were kind of a bit annoyed generally with the defendant, so they'd cut them down to size quite often. And I liked that. And I also liked that we made a lot of the legal clerks a bit annoyed at the benchers. And like, oh, God, would you? Oh, come
again.
On.
Oh, dear. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's discuss how the plays were rewritten for radio. We kind of tackled this in what I call the Blackadder fashion. And that is when Richard Curtis and Ben Elton were writing Blackadder, what they would do, they would both write half an episode each, and then they would swap. And the other person would do whatever they wanted with the other person's edits.
Yeah.
And their theory was that if one of the people cut your joke or whatever it was, then that's fine. If you have to justify a joke, it's not funny enough to stay in. And I think Pacey and I that's the way that I saw it. So we would take one of your scripts and I would do a load of work on it and then send it to Pacey, and Pacey would do whatever they wanted. And Pacey would take a script, do a load of work on it and send it to me, and I would do whatever I wanted. So you had something that by the end of it was an amalgamation that we'd both put our own spin on.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoyed that. Yeah. It was a nice way of working. How did you find it, Paisley?
Yeah, I really liked it. It was a kind of a different way for working, really, for me. And it's maybe the first time I've collaborated on a writing. I mean, we collaborated all together with Jill's original scripts, and then between you and I, Lydia, that we were working together in that fashion and kind of that way. And doing that was interesting because I read the plays first off. So when there came some changes, I did notice some of them like directly, and because I've already read the original script, and then I just found it good because if it for me, if it flowed in that way, I would pick it and I might change a few bits, or it just didn't feel too stressful to even change anything as well. It was kind of I would add something and then you'd be looking at it as well, and vice versa. And it was kind of this nice way of and kind of relaxed fashion as well of kind of doing it. I didn't feel under a lot of pressure to write like lots of jokes.
Well, and that was the whole point. Nobody wanted anybody to feel pressurized, and it was quite relaxed, the whole process.
Yeah, and I think it was important. I think that it's quite indicative of the type of people we are, in that when edits did come, so I know with Jill, there were things that you pointed out to me, you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this and that, especially in the speech that I wrote for Billy at the end of the Panto play. And I think it was really important that, again, that kind of approach of going, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
If you want to change it, we'll change it. Yeah. And there wasn't any, oh, no, I'm going to get on my high horse and dig my heels in. Yeah, it was just, absolutely fine. I want everybody involved to be comfortable with what we're doing and what we're doing now. So we're not going to put something out that makes anyone in the group feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was really nice because it was very trusting as well. and I felt very comfortable and confident to sort of, if I wrote something, I wouldn't, if it got cut, and bits did, it just didn't work. You know, we were many eyes over the same thing, and how I'm when I'm writing something, you might just get stuck in that, going, oh, this is the best thing ever, and actually what did I just write at like 2 a.m. And then other times I might be like, oh, I'm not 100% sure with that, but then Lydia, you might have gone, oh, I can see where that ends, and that's been really nice. Or it's just something that I didn't think too much of, but I put it in and then it works really well, and with something else. And, you know, there was lots of different ways that it kind of connected, which was really good. And I personally felt really confident and comfortable working with everyone. And thank you for that, really. Yeah.
I find that in the Fringe in general, actually, at the Bradford Fringe, everything's just been very supportive and everybody's just got on and helped each other. It's been a really nice collaborative environment.
Yeah, it's important it should work like that. That's good.
Yeah, I think with that kind of environment as well that the Fringe has done, and with this project, it's been like, I've noticed a huge difference in myself as well. I mean, I'm talking about myself here, so just no
one want to hear
right.
Well,
personally, what I've gained from it was amazing, because I could see the progress that I've kind of made from the start to the finish. And actually, I really enjoy collaborating with people, but sometimes it doesn't always work. And that's okay, because you're not going to be able to work with everyone in the same way. It's, you know, that's the thing. But when you do find people to collaborate with, that you work really well, it is like, it's really good to see what you created together, and hearing these plays when they've been finished has been really good, because it's just been nice. That's it, really. It's just been really nice.
One of the things that I really liked about doing this project is that when you do stand-up comedy, and I know Paisley does a lot of stand-up comedy as well, you'll write your set and then you will go and perform it in a room, and unless for some reason you video it, it just disappears. As the moment you've done it, it's gone. And that's lovely in some ways, but in other ways there's nothing to kind of be able to show someone. I mean, especially like my mum. I remember my mum coming to see me do stand-up comedy about 8 years ago, and I bombed. It was so bad.
Aww.
And it was so awful to then like get off the stage in this little kind of slightly grotty pub and go, yes mum, this is what I do with my time. And I was like, you clearly put in a lot of effort. Thanks mum. And it's been nice actually to be able to work on something that then turns into a final, I don't like the word product, but a final thing that is concrete, that I can then go and say to people, I made this and this is funny and we did it. And other people can go and observe it to actually create something rather than it just be words that are spoken and lost. I really liked that aspect of this project.
And then you can compare as well if you do something else after it. You know what I mean? You can look back then and say, whether it's improved or how different it was, so it's something to relate to.
I can compare it to the gigs that went really badly.
If they weren't recorded, they're gone now, you know.
Exactly. just words expelled into the air. Well, that is it for All Rise in Conversation, and that is the end of the All Rise Bradford Legal Heritage Plays for 2020. We sincerely hope that you have enjoyed listening to us over the last 4 weeks, and that you will be able to join us again next year, whether that is as radio plays or potentially back on stage in 2021. If you have enjoyed these productions, please consider donating to the Bradford Fringe crowdfunder. You can find details at bradfordfringe.co.uk. This episode featured Samreen Akhtar as chair of the bench, Riaz Sheikh as the prosecutor, Jill Arnold as defence, Billy Pearce as the defendant Percy Butterfield, Abby Langford as Irene Hill, Karaisha Nuttu as Susan Hill, Richard Clues as Herbert Davis, and Helen Langley as clerk to the court.